What does ambition have to do with wealth? Almost everything. It's an attitude, a way of life, a calling. It's what drives you towards your dreams. No matter what stage of your wealth journey you're in, our international connections, experts, and digital capabilities can support you anytime, anywhere. Now, your wealth ambitions have the opportunities to match. So the question is, where would you like your ambition to take you?
Please welcome to the stage Maggie Ng, Head of Wealth and Personal Banking Hong Kong, HSBC.
Well, thank you very much. I was told I had to stick to my script, so hence the note here in front of me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Big warm welcome to joining us here today at the HSBC lunch at Bloomberg Asia Wealth Summit. I'm really excited to be reunited with a lot of the business leaders and financial experts and listening to your insight earlier this morning. To me, actually, I think there's another aspect of investment, and that's wealth, that's health. Every day as an organization, we speak to different individuals about how to build their health, their wealth, and how to safeguard their wealth. But if you think about it, if you have to make and build your wealth, you need some money. If you want to maintain your health, it doesn't cost much. It really needs just a set of good habits and the right mindset. So today, I'm really thankful that we have the chance to introduce a guest speaker later on today, Danny Yeung, who's the co-founder and CEO of Prenetics, who's also a dear friend of mine. So before I pass the stage to him, I want to just share with you some statistics and also what we've been doing in HSBC. So according to the latest survey, we noticed that actually the average age of customer getting to know and want to know more about health and protection is getting younger. If you look at the average age of customers buying annuity products in Hong Kong, it's actually trend down from 47, on average 47 years old to back in 2019 to now at 40 years old. And seeing this trend, HSBC has also equipped ourselves to serve our customers. We have launched 2 new Pragmatic Center, conveniently located next to our iconic wealth center, one in K11, one in Hysan. And so that's where we integrate wealth management, insurance protection, and body check, medical check into a one-stop service for our customers. We also have launched recently a gamification program. It's called the HSBC Live Wealth Program, where we promote our customers to develop healthy lifestyles. So if you walk, for instance, 99,000 steps a day, you have a chance to win an Apple Watch, alongside with many of the reward points that you can use to facilitate your financial transactions. So those are the few things that we've done evolving with our clients. Of course, our clients are very dynamic. Protections, investment are one aspect of their needs, but they're also very international. So our clients have many international needs, education, international. So recently, as part of the Premier programs, we have launched a list of privileges to our customers. We've given them 6 promises, of which international credit and international account opening are some of the favorable features that our clients like. So today in Hong Kong, before you visit a foreign market, you can open an account via our digital means. So these are a few examples of how HSBC has evolved and pivoted to our customers' needs. So I know today we have a lot of clients who are also HSBC clients. I want to thank you for choosing HSBC as your bank. I think it's very wise in that choice. You are actually part of the key reasons why we continuously want to evolve and strive and to do better. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, and I also want to pass the stage back to Danny so that he can share with you his insight on health. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Danny Yeung, co-founder and CEO, Prenetics. for a conversation with Bloomberg's Bruce Einhorn.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Danny, for joining us. I think I speak for many people who've lived through the pandemic in Hong Kong in saying Prenetics is a brand that a lot of us know because Prenetics was the place where we would go to get our COVID tests. But I think a lot of people don't really know too much about the history of the company. So maybe you could start off by just telling us a little bit about how Prenetics got started and what the business was prior to the pandemic.
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Maggie, for having me today. Very nice to be here for this lunch-wise. So I won't talk too much to interrupt everyone's lunch here. But just a bit of background about myself. Prenetics actually started back in 2014. My previous background was actually as an entrepreneur. So my previous background before Prenetics was e-commerce. So I started a company called You Buy, I Buy in 2010 that was subsequently acquired by Groupon. So I left in 2014, and after exiting Groupon, I wanted to create something of impact for health, and then chose genetics. And then the name Prenetics actually comes from prevention and genetics combined together. So we started off doing genetic testing, working with large insurance companies such as Prudential, HSBC, and providing genetic test results to their insured members as a way of prevention. Because we feel that if you know data, then you're able to prevent certain things from happening, right? And just want to share a story in terms of what Maggie mentioned earlier about wealth and health, right? It was a very personal story. Actually, last Friday evening, I was at a EY 55th year gala dinner here in Hong Kong. I was sitting at a round table for dinner, and then, of course, we're talking and chatting, and then one of the ladies said, "Oh, you know what? I'm a big Circle DNA fan." And then, so Circle DNA is one of our genetic testing products that we sell globally, right? And I'm like, wow, maybe share a little bit more about your experience with Circle DNA, right? And then, so she was telling me how it solved her mystery of her son. And her son is 6 years old now, and he actually has hearing loss. And then for 3 years, the mother and the father, they could not figure out what was wrong with the child. And the doctors, they went through lots of laboratory, lots of doctors, lots of specialists, but were unable to figure out why the son was basically always leaning towards one side. And then until she said 6 months ago, her and her husband decided to do a Circle DNA test. It revealed they both have the GJB2 mutation, which is a genetic mutation associated with deafness. Now, if you're a carrier, it doesn't affect you. But if you and your partner both are the carriers of the same mutation, your child has a 25% chance of actually inheriting that disease. Now, so with this disease, it's actually, you can't cure it. But you imagine for parents, 3 years, you're constantly going to doctor, trying to figure out what's wrong. So at least by having that result, it solved their mystery of understanding why their son was like that way. And then now they can actually be better prepared for the future with their son.
So explain a little bit more about how Circle DNA works. Somebody goes and they have their blood taken and then it's examined, or is
So again, there's also misperceptions, right? So a lot of people believe doing a genetic test involves blood. It just involves saliva nowadays with the technology, right? So you just do a saliva swab, sending back to the laboratory, get your results in about 2 weeks. So it can give you information on all sorts of things as diet, nutrition, disease. I think, of course, the most famous case of a genetic disease is actually Angelina Jolie. So Angelina Jolie, of course, she has the BRCA2 mutation associated with breast and ovarian cancer. So with that mutation, she has an 87% lifetime risk of breast cancer. But knowing that information early on, so she decided to have a double mastectomy, which then reduced her risk from 87% to 5%. Again, the results are giving you information that you can do something about. Another sharing of my personal results is that I also have an increased risk of colorectal cancer due to a genetic mutation I have. So I found out this result about 4 or 5 years ago, right? And then so what I've done is that proactively modify my diet. I've stopped eating, red meat or steak unless it's like a Wagyu. You can't, resist. Everything in life is about moderation, right? I used to love steak. Like I used to eat like beef at least 2-3 times a week. But knowing that information, you're able to modify your diet because reality for cancers, 40% is able to be prevented with early interventions.
Now, with someone like Angelina Jolie, that example, she went into it knowing what she was looking for.
Yeah.
So is that the way that it works? Like you have to give an indication of these are the things that I think might be a problem, or does someone go in and say, I don't know anything, so tell me what could be?
So the use case is actually dual, right? So for individuals, let's say if you have a family member that has cancer-wise, right? Let's say brother, father, or sister, etc., that has cancer-wise, then there is a higher likelihood that you will also have that same mutation. So for Angelina Jolie's case, she lost actually 7 to 8 family members due to ovarian and breast cancer. So there was a high likelihood she got the mutation, which then she decided to do a genetic test, right? But a lot of times, you may not actually know if you have a family member with genetic mutation. So for these individuals, realistically, you can just order the test online to be able to get your results.
Now, during the pandemic, of course, your company shifted a bit because you were doing a lot of testing for the government. Now, a pandemic is officially over as of last week.
Yes.
WHO has announced.
Which is great for everyone. And that's why we can be here with everyone in Hong Kong, right? Yes.
So in terms of the direction that the company is now taking, how are you shifting? Where is it? Are you reverting back to where you were before the pandemic, or do you see yourself building on what you accomplished during these past few years and moving in new directions?
A little bit of both wise, right? I mean, just to share, again, everyone, with Prenetics wise, we're quite instrumental here in Hong Kong. I probably have all of your DNA somewhere in our laboratory, right? But don't worry, we're not going to send it to mainland or clone you guys, yeah? There's a lot of conspiracies early on, and we're going to take your DNA, send it to mainland, right? It's all a bunch of BS early on, right? Just to share, it was quite crazy. Just to share back on early on in the pandemic, we pivoted from doing genetic testing to COVID testing as a way just to help the community. Because in Hong Kong early on, it was very difficult to do a COVID testing. In March of 2020, it cost 3,000 to 4,000 HKD to do a COVID test, and you had to go to the hospital. Right? Nobody wanted to go to the hospital to do a COVID test, right? Because you fear infection. So we started doing at-home PCR testing for $100 USD, and then the government enlisted us as the first private laboratory to do mass testing. So in total, we've now done about 28 million PCR tests globally, right? We did the airports, the quarantine hotels, the community centers, and it was quite crazy because our first project with COVID was actually we had to pass out manually saliva testing kits to 300,000 restaurant workers across 16,000 restaurants in July of 2020. And we completed that work in 4 weeks, right? And then so we're actually, a lot of people ask me, are we happy with the pandemic's over? I'm actually, for day one, it was never our intention to do COVID testing, but we were just able to scale up our laboratory operations to serve the needs now. And then with Prenetics, with the COVID aspects, that we actually intend to reinvest all of those profits that we made into our next future, which is pivoting into precision oncology. And going back to cancer-wise, we feel that's the area that we have the biggest potential impact. Yeah, and then so 4 months ago, we've actually started on this work, is that we acquired our first company called ACT Genomics, which is one of the leading cancer genomics testing companies in the region. And then so what do we do there is that once someone actually is diagnosed with cancer, we do a targeted therapy test to identify what is causing that cancer, what specific mutation. Then you can be prescribed with the right medication. And because once you're diagnosed with cancer, the challenge is there's so many different drugs, and drugs realistically only work for about 20 or 30% of the people. But it goes through, again, trial and errors. Yeah? And then so with genomics wise, we're able to personalize that medication according to the mutation. Right? So that's the area that we're focusing on, targeted therapy. The other area which I feel has significant opportunity, and we're intending to invest over 100 mil USD over the next 3 to 5 years in clinical research, is the early detection of cancer. Again, this is not, so with Circle DNA, the difference is we're looking at genetic risk of cancer. So when we say early detection of cancer, this is where there's technology available that you can simply use a blood test to identify stage 1 and stage 2 of cancers. Right? And then with that, then that's going to be a holy grail, because when you get your annual health check, etc., this is where it can be applied, right? Because right now, the challenge is to detect cancer. Most of the cases are once you have various symptoms and at stage 3 or 4. Yeah, because a lot of times there's like blood tests for cancer, but it's looking at proteins, but proteins only develop at late stages. So I'm very excited about being able to dive into this area of early detection.
What do you think are the advantages of doing this business from here in Hong Kong as opposed to somewhere else in the region? Are there things to be gained by being a Hong Kong-based company?
Yeah, I mean, I love Hong Kong, right? So first and foremost, right, I love Hong Kong. So it's given me a lot since moving here, from the U.S. in 2010. So I think Hong Kong actually has lots of advantages, right? Number one, people in Hong Kong love to work. Right? Correct, right? So I have staff that working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. So work ethic is very, very good. And also, again, Hong Kong-wise, you have GBA, you have mainland China, right? So we're close to 70, 80 million people within the GBA area, and that's a huge population, right? While still being not in mainland China. So when we're looking at clinical trials, we can actually have multi-site countries send their samples into Hong Kong. And you cannot do that in China, though. Right, but I can do that in Hong Kong, right? So there's a big advantage for having clinical trials in Hong Kong, setting up our center of excellence here in Hong Kong, and again, where our laboratories in Science Park, while then potentially connecting to US and Europe as well.
And you can't do that in China because of restrictions on data.
Yes, correct, yeah. And samples and etc.
Let's get to that data issue, because you jokingly referred earlier about the conspiracy theories about. But tell us a little bit about how data is protected and what you do to assure people that that their data is going to be secure. Yeah,
so I mean, we do two parts, right? Let's say for our genetic testing wise, right? We split the personal information as well as genetic information on two different cloud servers. So even in the case of a hack, you're not going to be able to identify the individual, right? And of course, we don't share the data with anyone else unless you actually ask us to do that. So we don't sell that data to insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, or anything like that.
The insurance companies, what is their role? Are they your customers? What role do they play?
Yeah, so in insurance companies, we've worked with a lot of the leading insurance companies in the region. So they're basically utilizing the results and providing it to their insurance customers, but they don't see the data, right? So in the insurance companies, there's also misperceptions that they want the data, but the reality is the insurance companies don't know what to do with that data. Right? So it opens too big of a worms, because if you talk to any of the insurance CEOs, they're like, hey, we don't want this data because, again, they don't know what to do with it, because if you give them data, they have to do something with it. And then that opens too big of worms. And there's certain laws and restrictions around insurance companies from utilizing genetic data for pricing aspects.
Right, because I think that might be a concern that some people have, is that they agree to take a test and then the insurance company might get their information and say, all right, well, we think you're going to be more likely to get cancer, so we're going to raise your rates.
Correct. So there's the GINA Act in the US, and a lot of the insurance companies follow the GINA Act in the US, which actually prohibits insurance companies from utilizing genetic data for pricing.
And is that relevant here as well?
A lot of the insurance companies, they follow that standard. Yeah. So there has been no insurance company that I know of that have utilized basically genetic information for pricing wise, right? There are very rare cases such as Huntington's disease and etc. that you have to let the insurance companies know, but in general wise, you do not have to. They cannot influence the underwriting.
And then are there other areas, other diseases that you think are ones that you'd like to be looking into going forward beyond cancer?
No, I mean, I think cancer is already a huge opportunity. I think there's a huge opportunity from both a business perspective as well as from an impact perspective. And that's why I chose healthcare, right? Because I think, to be fair, there's a lot of ways to make money. But I think there's very few cases or very few industries where we're really impacting people on a health perspective as well as building wealth for our shareholders.
And how does, you mentioned you've got a lot of experience as an entrepreneur. So how would you compare your experience here with some of your other businesses? What are the big differences?
Very different. Yeah? So, I mean, I've been entrepreneur pretty much for my whole life. My first business was a restaurant, actually. right? So I was making mangoes, mango mochi, Hui Lao San. At age 25, I was in the kitchen, right? So that was my first business. Did that for 3-4 years. So very different than now looking at cancer, right? And talking to scientists, yeah. And then my second business was hotel furniture, import export from China into the US, working on Las Vegas hotels, like City Center, MGM, and then again, I moved to Hong Kong in 2010 and started e-commerce company, right? Very, very different industries, but I think there are similarities. I think similarities is that you have to understand your product, you have to understand the competitors, you have to build a very strong, talented team that aligns with your vision. Because I think even with, let's say, Prenetics the last 3 years, a lot of companies, they could have done what we've done actually. Yeah, a lot of laboratories, they could have done what we've done. But I think one thing that separated us is we actually had our senior management team very aligned to the vision and mission of why we wanted to do this. Because it was very hard work. I mean, early 2020, 21, 22. I mean, in Hong Kong, remember there was these lockdowns, right? In Hong Kong, right? We had to set up our testing sites on the streets and get results back by 6, 7 a.m. So there were weeks and months of periods of time where our team could not sleep, or just 2-3 hours, right? So if we didn't have that alignment at the senior management level, all of this doesn't work, no matter how good the idea is, right? And so I think having a strong team was always a consistent theme across each of the previous companies I've built.
I think we've got some time to open the floor to questions. If anybody would like to ask Danny a question now, please.
How does other emerging technologies, AI, that sort of thing, merge with what you're doing?
Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of convergence there, right, with AI-wise, right? I mean, especially looking at the data, visual imageries, basically for even looking at the stuff that we're looking for early detection, right? So we're definitely having that as part of the picture because definitely improving accuracy, sensitivities, and specificities, right? So definitely it has a huge role to play right now. And also in terms of our company as well too, right? I mean, I literally told my team, which we have 200-300 people right now, is that, hey, if you guys are not using ChatGPT on a daily or even weekly basis, next year you're very likely out of a job. Right? So I'm very transparent with my team, right? So, but then I use it at least 2, 3, 4 times a week, right? On everything from writing, press releases, so much things that is very helpful. Worth the $20 US a month.
You've grown by acquisition, done this recently. Is that the plan, just to do a series of inorganic acquisitions to build up the capability across all these sorts of cancer, or could you research yourself?
It'll be a combination of both, because again, I think with acquisitions wise, you're able to speed up certain processes, right? So, and we need to be able to utilize our cash as well because no one's giving us any value from our share price, right? So we do have about 200 million cash, 0 debt. So as a public listed company, we have to be able to look at opportunities that are inorganic as well as organic. But for example, when we think about early detection, these are areas that we are looking at both M&A as well as organic because we'll still need to embark in these clinical trials, and these clinical trials are going to have to be organic. But I think it's also, given where the markets are, valuations have come down quite significantly, easily 50 to 80% within the last 12 to 18 months, right, of the last fundraising rounds. So I think for companies with cash, it is a good place to be.
Where do you think where are you going to be focusing for your clinical trials?
Multi-site, so it would be truly global, right? So we're looking at least 4 to 5 locations around the world. Hong Kong, of course, Southeast Asia, Europe, US, these are all locations that we're looking at.
I mean, there's quite a bit of overlap with preventive therapies and healthier lifestyles.
Yeah.
So how do you see yourself linking your product and company with those? Because those can be pretty disorganized, small scale, not to be trusted. So how do you see extending your branding?
Yeah, correct, right? So we have to be quite careful with that, right? Correct? But again, I think we have to always go back to the science, right? What's the scientific backing of whatever product that we're launching, right? So I think that's going to be key focus, is make sure that we have the right science, right backing, and then basically making sure that our results are easily interpreted by the consumer. So I think that's also going to be critical, because a lot of times I think medical reports and etc. they're too complicated, and I think we try to make the whole user journey very easy. I think a big part of that also comes from my background as e-commerce, in terms of always thinking about scalability, apps, user friendliness, customer service, and again, I think everything now, even though we're selling a clinical or medical product, at the end of the day, it's a consumer product, right? And then so I think people are thinking about how do you get a much better experience, right? Because think about it, I'm sure your annual health check, you probably don't have it on your phone. Correct, right? But that information, that results should actually be somewhere within your app. Understand even simple things like cholesterol, etc., things like that, which you can actually modify with a proper diet and lifestyle, and be able to, let's say, look at it on a quarterly basis. Yeah.
John?
The early detection product did you envision that as being over the counter or having some sort of doctor oversight?
Yeah. So I think I would say the next 5 years, that will definitely be a physician ordered product, because as part of, let's say, your annual health check. But I do see, let's say, in the next potentially 10 years, that you can actually potentially do this at like a pharmacy, at home kit, and etc. Because a lot of the trend is moving towards at home diagnostics. But I think given that this is still going to be very new to a lot of patients, I think the initial stage will still need to be done via a physician. Not at the time, right? So I think our products are more for prevention and also diagnosis at the current time.
Madeline?
Thank you. Danny, I had one question around one of the big topics in healthcare is obviously cost.
Yeah.
And, we can do all these many things, for example, tailored cancer treatments, but how do we keep the cost under control and make it affordable to everybody?
No, that's a great question, right? So cost is something that, again, when we're thinking about the product-wise, is very, very important, right? So for example, right now in the US, there is a company called Grail, which is actually was acquired by Illumina for about $8 billion USD, right? So they actually already have an early detection product on the market. Is roughly $1,000 USD. But $1,000 USD is actually too expensive for the mass market, right? And then so that's why we actually have to be thinking about very innovatively, in terms of the technology, how can we actually lower the cost? Because again, if it's a product for the mass market, it needs to be in the area of, I would say, $200 to $300 USD, where then people don't think too much about it. For it to be affordable, So I think even same thing for our Circle DNA test. I mean, we sell our Circle DNA, which is a whole exome sequencing. So it's a clinical product that we sell direct to consumer. But if you go to sanatorium to take that test, it's roughly about $2,000 US. And we sell it for roughly about $500 USD. So it's a fraction of the price, but you're getting the clinical medical grade product. So that's a key part of our story as well.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one more question. Anyone? Well, in that case, I think we can thank Danny for taking the time, give you a chance to eat a little bit of lunch before everyone has to go to the next event. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everyone.